The latest Nanos research poll for CTV News and the Globe and Mail shows the Liberals and Conservatives gaining a bit of support while the NDP is down. The Liberals are up nearly half a point to just over 45% support. The Conservatives are up more than half a point to 37.2%. The NDP is down almost a full point, dipping below 10%. While the Bloc Québécois has 5.3%, the Green Party has 1.6%, and the People's Party of Canada is at 1.1%. And when it comes to who Canadians want to be Prime Minister, support for Liberal leader Mark Carney is down slightly to 48.6%. A Conservative leader, Pierre Poilievre, has just under 34% support. NDP leader Jagmeet Singh is up nearly a full point to 5.3%. Well, joining us live now to break down the latest polling numbers is Nik Nanos, founder and chief data scientist with Nanos Research. What an interesting couple of weeks it's been, Nick, to see these numbers, the tidal wave going from left to right. What do you think was behind some of the latest numbers? What was driving them?
Well, what's clear is that the Liberals, right now at least, are in the driver's seat because, according to the CTV News, the Globe and Mail Nanos tracking, that they basically have an 8-point advantage. They've been over the course of the campaign, they've been basically picking up steam almost every day. Mark Carney also has an advantage on the preferred prime minister measure. But, it's interesting, Jamie, if we put the time machine on where the Liberals were under Justin Trudeau last election and where they are today under Mark Carney, the thing is, in the last election, the Liberals got 33% support. Right now with Mark Carney, they are at 45%. For the Conservatives, they're also doing a little better. In the last election, they had 34%. Now they're at 37%. But I think the key takeaway here is that the Liberals under Mark Carney are basically up 12 percentage points compared to 2021 under Justin Trudeau. So that's the big change. The other thing is that, when we look at who Canadians would prefer as prime minister, it's basically, Carney's ahead with the exception of young people where it's a tie between Carney and Poilievre, and also among men where it's a tie. But when you talk to women, when you talk to middle-aged and older Canadians, they're more likely to prefer Mark Carney today, at least, as prime minister.
And from what I've seen, one of the unique demographics that continues to drive up the support for the Liberals is the baby boomers, people who are still, basically relying just on what they see on mainstream media and maybe not looking at other sources to see what's happening on the campaign trail. And I'm wondering how unique that demographic is when it comes to these numbers and the success of the Liberals right now.
Yeah, usually a lot of the boomers also tend to vote conservative in the past, right? The thing is they tend to be a little more conservative minded. But, right now we're in an environment where they are thinking about the binational relationship. They're wondering about the future of the country. They're also, looking at the bills and the cost of living. And that's good for Pierre Poilievre. It's good for Mark Carney, but also good for Pierre Poilievre because that's been a big part of his focus over the last couple of years. So the thing is that for Pierre Poilievre, really the game for him is middle-aged Canadians and boomers who at one point were looking at Pierre Poilievre. When the Conservatives were at 47% support, way ahead of the Liberals back at the end of December, Pierre Poilievre was doing really well. Basically across the board, but that's unraveled with Mark Carney. So the big question for Poilievre, can he kind of regain some of the support that he's had among older Canadians? Because Poilievre is doing well among Canadians that are under 35 years of age, who are more likely to give Poilievre a tip of the hat than the Liberals.
And some of the criticism towards the Poilievre campaign is that he's not spending enough time focusing on the trade war, which is something that he was talking about just before you joined me on this interview. But I'm curious, Scott Reid also talked about a unique advantage that Mark Carney has right now, given the fact he's an unelected official, but found himself as prime minister and now gets to be prime minister at a very contentious time in our nation's history with this looming trade war. And I'm wondering how much is that playing into the numbers, given the fact that people are actually seeing him in the role?
Yeah, I think that's helping Mark Carney a lot. And how about if we just add another dimension to what Scott Reid said? In addition to being prime minister, he has, for all intents and purposes, no governing record to defend, right? Because he was never even elected to the House of Commons. So, he has the benefit of having the platform of prime minister, actually having a major event, in this particular case, Donald Trump and threatened tariffs and all that kind of stuff for him to respond to, which he needs to respond to. So he gets a bit of a 2-for-1 in terms of his profile. He gets automatic coverage because he's leader of the Liberal Party, but he also gets even more coverage because he happens to be the prime minister and has to deal and respond to Donald Trump. And I think this probably explains why on those preferred prime minister numbers, he's just so far ahead. Like it's like 49% for Mark Carney, 34% for Pierre Poilievre. It's, for all intents and purposes, like a 15-point advantage because of the current environment that Mark Carney is in.
It's been fascinating to watch these numbers change over the last couple of weeks. Nick Nanos, always appreciate the time. We'll chat soon.